Committee to order. Today is Tuesday, June 24th. It is 6:30. Present is all of council, the mayor, the law director, and finance director, Christina Conway. Roll call. Karen Labby's here.
Greg Bowen's here. Bill Fury's here.
Thank you. I see no public participation. So did everyone have the opportunity to review the minutes?
I want to make a motion to accept the minutes as submitted, please.
I'll second.
All right. Bill?
Yes. Excuse me. I apologize.
Greg?
Yes.
And it's a yes for me. So the minutes are approved. We'll now turn it over to Christina Conway for the quarterly reports.
Good evening. So I know it's not the close of the second quarter yet. However, we're not going to meet again until August. So I cut things a little short. So all the numbers that you're going to see are through June 15th. They're still pretty representative of where we should be this year. I'll kind of go through these quickly because the other items that we have tonight are more important. But for the quarterly expense, we're right on target. Through 6 months of the year, we should be at 50%. We're currently at 49.5%. We have budgeted for the general fund $39 million for the year. We're at $16.7 million. We do have $2.5 million of encumbrances that is part of that. If you look on the second page, some of the numbers for some of our grant funds and street construction funds are a little low right now, but obviously we're nearing into construction season, so those expenses are going to increase. The sewer fund, we're overall at 52%, however, only 44% of that is for their wages. We do have that contract with Burgess and Nyepel for the design project that's going on, so that contributes to the majority of that larger number, $930,000 range. Golf course expenses are at 43%. Fitness center is at 70%, but there's also the $2 million encumbrance for the pool pack project that's currently going on. So their wages are only at 37%. And overall, we're right at the 50% mark, so we are smooth sailing. Everything is right on track. If you want to skip over to the quarterly revenue, I'll just point out a couple things real quick. Our RETA municipal income tax collections are a tick over the 50% at $13.9 million. We did get our reconciliation after the 15th, so that number is a little bit higher right now. Recreation day camp fees, we've almost collected our full amount. Day camp's in full swing, but we do still get some payments for aftercare and things like that that trickle in. Total general fund revenue, we're a little bit over our halfway mark at 51%. I'm going to skip forward. Grant funds, we really haven't received much because those projects are still underway, so we won't receive those until project completion. Let's see. Golf course, we're a little bit below where we should be. Obviously, we had a very wet spring. We're having a very tumultuous weather, even with the heat. You're not getting as many golfers out there. So they're lower than what we would like, but we're hoping that evens out through the rest of the season. And fitness center, same thing. We know that we've had some heartburn with the indoor pool being closed now for the pool pack project, so we're kind of realizing some of those issues when it comes to revenue collections. But on a high note, for capital improvement, we have exceeded our reimbursements. We sold a fire truck. Now, I know that seems strange that it goes into capital improvement, but when it was paid out of the capital improvement fund, so the money has to go back to whatever fund it was paid out of. So even though we do have that police and fire levy fund, it didn't pay for the truck, so it doesn't get the proceeds from the sale. Are there any questions on those two reports?
So will that not be the case moving forward with the subsequent trucks that we were to sell?
Correct. Anything
Okay.
that's been purchased out of that
Thank
police
you.
and fire levy fund, if we do sell it eventually, it'll
It'll
get
go back.
receipted in
Okay,
there.
thank you.
Any other questions on those?
just noticed the parking fines are really up high. Is there a reason for that?
I did see that. I was going to make note of that, but I'm not really sure why.
Okay.
We haven't had any, additional enforcement that I know of. Maybe just more people parking where they shouldn't be.
Are we still going to put more signs out about no parking, or because nothing's changed on my street? I still have 6 or 7 people that are overnight parking every day.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So, and what's challenging is if you have people in the street and then the landscaper parks across the street. Sometimes it's tough to fit a car through the opening.
Sure. Dennis will be here tonight. You can ask him
Thank you.
direct.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any questions on these reports for Christina? All right, want to move on to miscellaneous?
Okay, I'm sure everybody has seen in the news lately the discussion of House Bill 335, which there's a lot of different components to it. The one that most directly affects us as a city is the state legislature's desire to eliminate inside property tax millage. So for the Ohio Municipal League sent out something maybe 2.5 weeks ago, just alerting cities, school districts, townships. This is something that was introduced. It is going to have a massive impact if it does get passed. They did send out a survey. They wanted as many cities to fill it out as possible, just letting them know what do you receive in inside millage, if you receive anything, how do you use it. They just sent the results back this afternoon. So 160 cities responded. 85% of them said that they would have to reduce or eliminate some type of city services. 56% said that it would cause a severe budget impact. Most reported losses in the 6 to 7 figure range, so anywhere from hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars. 50% of those cities that responded said that they use those funds for police and fire pension, which is what we use our inside millage for. And that the elimination either causes, it's going to cause an increase in taxes in some other form, or cuts in service. So currently in Twinsburg, we fund our police and fire pensions as mandated by the Ohio Revised Code. We have 0.3 mils for each of them. So that comes out to around, right now it's $580,000 a year. While in comparison to school districts and other cities that may use inside millage for general fund revenue, for whatever other things that they have decided to use their inside millage for, Twinsburg's is relatively low. However, $580,000 is not something to scoff at. If you couple this with the legislature's desire to also increase police pensions over the next 4 years, it's significant. Increasing police pensions from 19.5% to 24% takes the police portion of the pension from around $600,000 to over $1 million. So losing $580,000 in revenue, that's just based on our number for this year. It's significant. So you either have to try and come up with a way to recoup that money, or you have to make cuts to certain services.
So, my understanding is that the bill stands in the House Ways and Means Committee, which Bill Romer is the sponsor of the bill and he's the chairman of. Spoke with him today, as well as Steve Demetrio. There are no, that they have taken any changes to inside village off the bill. It's no longer included. It's totally out as of today.
Okay, that's
And then-
they haven't
and
sent
tomorrow
anything
is
out
their
to
last-
anyone.
And then, well, again, there was committee reports today. Tomorrow's their last day in session, so they may or may not take action on it tomorrow afternoon, but inside millage is no longer a part of that. So,
That is complete news to me.
well, it's news to me because I called them to say,
Yeah.
hey, what's going on with this? Because I want to understand it. They said, Bill, we took it out. It's not there. It's no longer a part of the bill.
Okay. Well, I'll still continue with the presentation just so we all have an idea of what.
Well,
I mean,
why would-
nothing's set in stone at
Why
this
would they
point.
not
So.
reach out to cities and let them know that then?
It's in process right
They
now. That's
voted
part of
on
the
it.
budget that doesn't get passed till fall. So it's in committees and that sits in the Ways and Means, which is their finance
So they
committee.
decide.
And so they're crafting it and taking input and changing it
Gotcha.
and it's out. And And I've been told, again, reliable source, the guy that sponsored it, that runs the committee, and the majority whip in the House,
that's great.
both said it's out and it's not coming back, as of today.
Oh, that's great.
I'm not trying to steal your thunder, I'm
No,
just
Well,
telling you.
hopefully we'll have
I'm
some
actually very
communication.
stunned because
Matt,
I
do you
have-
have any
Yeah, no,
insight to this?
that's news to me. Yeah.
I mean, we haven't.
It
there's
sounds
been-
like something happened today,
Right.
and it hasn't worked its
I know
way
there's-
to any of the local government.
I think it happened earlier, but there was a meeting today, and again, they're not doing any, I was told, I got texts. I got,
Yeah.
after, because I talked to them earlier, I knew the meeting was this afternoon, followed up afterwards. It's out. They told me it was gonna be out, and then they confirmed it's out.
That's
I mean, it's good news,
Yeah,
but
it's good to
I'm
hear.
also, until I see it in writing, I don't believe
Absolutely.
it.
I agree, 100%.
Romer said that, that's the way it is. He didn't say anything about, taking it out or stalling it or anything like that. So this could be, after he talked to the mayor.
Yeah.
Well, that would be good news if it was, so.
So I will say there has been a huge response from cities, school districts, not so much townships. They're kind of, there's a caveat and a carve out for them and exemptions. But there's been, I don't know if you've read anything on cleveland.com, pretty much every school board, every city, you'll see legislation tonight drafted by OML for cities and villages to voice their opposition to this because it will hurt many municipalities and how to fund these mandates. Well, I should say, the police and fire pension, especially with the desired increase, is an unfunded mandate at that point because they've taken away your ability to pay for it, but they're also wanting you to increase your contribution. So that's kind of a twofold problem. It's great.
Who conducted the survey that asked you the questions?
The Ohio Municipal League. So they represent all the municipalities, villages, townships within the state of Ohio. They do tons of presentations. I do recommend, if you go to their website, they do send out a weekly, it's kind of like a synopsis of what's happening at the state level. They focus on bills of municipal interest. They really do a good job of like narrowing down how these things affect cities, and they advocate on their behalf. So Kent Scarrett is the director of the Ohio Municipal League. He did opponent testimony last week over how these changes would really hurt more municipalities. It will hurt school districts as well, but we're going to focus on what we need at this point. It is not saying that cities cannot go back and put a levy on the ballot. It's just eliminating that automatic inside millage. Now, in a city like Twinsburg, where the residents have already voiced their opinion and capped millage, once it's removed, it's really difficult to get it back. So that's always a worry. But if it does come to fruition that it is removed, then we have nothing to worry about. But it seems very lackadaisical to put everyone in some type of scare if they were just going to remove it 3 weeks later.
And I think to add, it's the OML, the Ohio Municipal League, that reached out to the political subdivisions, namely municipalities and school districts, and supplied the sample legislation that you have tonight to consider.
Which will continue to, just in case, right? Go forward.
Does anyone have any other questions on that House bill or implications from it?
It seemed like most of it was towards not letting millage increase unvoted or counted with the schools. The
Yes.
whole thing's about schools. It's not really
There's one brief section that pretty
talks
much
about
says
inside millage.
inside millage can no longer be automatically levied, and that's it. But the rest of it talks about school districts
Right.
and how they move millage and limiting those things. But
Emergency fees and things like that, so.
If it matters, the Ohio Association of Chiefs of Police is not in favor of it.
I read that today as well.
I get from a different source, but same thing, you know. Just different, I didn't get mine from the Ohio Municipal League, I got from Ohio Association.
So there's a lot of different bills floating out there right now about property tax reform. I don't know what the answer is. This to me is not it, but I can't give anything more concrete of what I think.
What was the incentive of even putting that out to create this? What am I missing there?
I don't know.
I think it's cart before the horse. I mean, for years, every conservative on the planet has been saying that school funding has been ruled unconstitutional 4 times by both Republican and Democratic administrations. No party is to blame for that, but that's a conservative talking point. And I think that this seeks to try and fix the continued just going to the property owner to fund schools with, you know, however you want to put it, little to no accountability. And you have a whole component of seniors and retired persons that simply are being taxed out of their homes, and then they just can't afford to stay there. You paid your house off 30 years ago, and you're paying $1,000 a month just to live there. So, although I appreciate the intent of this, I think that it's putting the cart before the horse, and that it is such an unfunded mandate right now. If we had figured out a way to fill that bucket that everybody could agree with,
Right.
Talked about raising county sales tax to offset the loss for the school's property tax.
yeah, but then that's just a slippery slope. I mean, it's already cheaper to buy stuff in Summit County than Nisqually County by what, 1.25% or 1.25%?
1.25.
Yeah. I mean,
The money's going to come from somewhere. It's just take it from here, take it from here.
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, the only thing with a sales tax is at least it's consumptive based. If you're a senior and you're watching your pennies and you're not spending like somebody who's in there earning prime,
Right.
you don't have to shoulder that burden. I'm sorry, I'm done. Go.
No, I was just
apologize.
No,
I was just going to comment, there are a couple other issues that are lodged within that bill. One of them is an increased homestead exemption. So currently the state gives a homestead exemption for people over 65, people who are permanently disabled who make less than $40,000 a year. They expanded that so that the county can offer an additional homestead exemption. So it's same parameters, but you make under $56,000 a year. But one of the other things that was big with Ohio Municipal League is the state legislature wanted to give county budget commissions more control over the levies that cities and school districts put on their tax budgets, and giving them a way to kind of control what they felt cities needed, regardless if the levies were voted on by the population of that city. And that's really an erosion of home rule. And that was their big thing was, you know, if the voters of this city have agreed that this is what they are willing to pay for whatever levy, why should a county budget commission, which is made up of, you know, the treasurer, the prosecutor, and I forget who the auditor for the county, have a decision and say, no, you don't really need that, we're only going to give you this. So that was Ohio Municipal League's big thing, was a lot of the things that are coming, they really harbor home on like not eroding home rule municipalities. So that was another thing that was stuck in there that, you know, kind of stuck a feather in, because no one wants to see the powers within their community eroded by someone who may not live here, may not have any type of interest in what happens.
Great. Well, just keep us in the loop if you receive any communication confirming
Absolutely.
what Bill heard today. That would be great.
Very good news.
Okay, moving on to review of banking service changes.
Okay, so I wanted to give an update. I'm sure you remember me talking about how last year we really tried to change our banking services contract. One of the things that most governments are trying to do is create more secure ways to pay vendors. Issuing checks to vendors is the least secure way to pay someone, whether it's our employees, which all of our employees are on direct deposit, which is great. But we reached out to Huntington and we said, well, what can we do? And they have what's called integrated payables. And what that is they contacted vendors on our behalf and said, here are your 150 top vendors that you've paid in the last year. We're going to contact them. We're going to ask them, would they accept a virtual card? So it's like paying with a credit card, except it's issued directly from the bank. Or would you accept an ACH payment? Both of those have lower fees. And then anything else any other vendors that didn't want to accept those for whatever reason, their fees are too high, or they, smaller vendor, they don't know how to do it. Huntington issues the checks directly for us. So we no longer, with the exception of maybe like Rock the Park events where the vendor wants to check the night of the event, or like an employee reimbursement, we have stopped printing checks in-house. That has saved us an exceptional amount of money. So not only are we making money on every time that virtual card gets used because we're getting a card rebate, we've also reduced our postage costs, our envelope costs, our printing costs, because our printer has a micker toner, which those micker toners are $700-800 a piece. So we have not had to replace one in the last year. We have not had to buy envelopes since last year. So in 2024, so we started the program, we were really up and running in August of 2024. In 2024, we received $13,800 in rebate for Huntington. Through May of this year, we've already received $12,000. So that's just for paying our vendors. We're getting money back from that. It's money we would have spent anyways. The cost of issuing a check, if we were to do it in-house and mail it out, postage is what, 55 cents now, 60
It's higher
cents?
than that.
75 cents?
Yeah.
So 75 cents, the envelope and the print cost, you're at, let's say, $1. We pay 25 cents. So we've cut our costs by a third.
2/3.
2/3.
You've cut by 2/3.
You're right. So we anticipate saving just in supplies this year $3,000. We've saved over $900 on postage so far this year, and we're only through May. So there is a nice little graph. Our card rebate is also in addition to the extra interest that we're getting on our bank account from changing it to a hybrid account. So we're trying to make our money at least work for us. I mean, we have to pay these vendors. We might as well make something back on it. We haven't had any complaints. We haven't had any issues. It was a training process for the staff on the front end, but now it's second nature. So it's just how can we better utilize staff time, which now they don't have to print checks and stuff envelopes. It's just been phenomenal. Again, some heartache at the beginning, you're changing processes, but it's really paid off.
Do they actually get paid faster this way or no?
So the checks, it's a little different because like if we were to mail the check out, I could take it down and Becky would put postage on it and it would go out that day. They mail it and it's usually like 2 days.
Big deal.
But it's more secure because it goes right from them printing it to their lockbox. You're not handling, you're not sending it out through postage and maybe it gets lost or things like that. But it's been really effective.
That's awesome.
That's really awesome.
That's great.
Yeah. And the last is discussion on the building maintenance and repair fund.
So this is just a continuation from a couple meetings ago. Mr. Bellin had brought up building maintenance and repair fund.
What's happening?
So I was thinking about it.
I have no
and
idea what's happening.
I did some research because I remember at Solon that we did have 2 building maintenance and repair funds. And so I requested the documents from them about what it was. And then when I was reading it, it was pretty much 2 funds that didn't have activity for a while. They were not set up properly with the state of Ohio to begin with. So at the time, the finance director at the time decided, I'm going to reclassify these the proper way, use the residual money in there for a purpose that somewhat aligns with why that fund was created. I don't know if necessarily here we need to because we have a capital improvement fund and really the only, like the fitness center, all of their improvements would go to the fitness center fund. Same with wastewater, same with like the golf course clubhouse. You could create a line item in capital improvement and just have that money roll over, similar to, but it's not restricted the way like having a fund would.
Okay, so that was going to be my question. So the way you set it up, it's not gonna be
It
a
would,
restricted fund like capital.
Correct.
Capital,
so if you did create a building maintenance and repair fund, it would strictly be for those building maintenance and repairs. Whereas if it just went into a general capital improvement fund, you could say, you know what, we don't need it for that, we're gonna use it for this. So I don't know if that plays into the decision at all.
I guess my point in bringing it up initially was I think there's value in setting that money aside. Again, I don't know the avenue of how we do it, whether it's another fund, another line item, what have you, where we can start to build funds for these larger projects that they come, right? Whether it's a pool pack, whether it's a new whatever, a new roof, a new fire department, a new, these kind of things. And so I just feel very, very strongly that like we should establish that. And again, whether it's a line item or a new fund, I don't particularly care. But I just think it should be done. And again, that doesn't mean we need to fund it even every year, right? There might be years where we can't. But when there are years when we've got, an extra 50,000, whatever it is, I think there's value to that. So
I think the better way to do that is to create a separate fund. Because then you don't run into that risk of, that this is what the purpose is for.
Right.
Whereas if it gets lumped into general capital improvement, you may forego some of those.
it's easier to forego
Yes,
it, yeah.
Absolutely.
So there's the money that goes into this fund. That's just, we just say, all right, let's just move
The
money
savings
from here to
account.
here. Is that the idea?
Yes, so
We're just gonna.
you would have to get approval from the state auditor to create a new fund. I don't foresee any problem. I know other cities who have these. And then you define what it's for. It's going to say for the repair and maintenance of city facilities, X, Y, and Z. But it's going to outline what you can use, what purpose you can use it for.
So 272 is called a reserve fund, and there's $1 million in it.
So that
Is
is,
that different than what we're talking about?
yes, so that is for building department
Maintenance or-
deposits that contractors pay when they are doing work.
Okay, so that's like bonds
Yes.
we're talking about?
Correct.
I apologize, I did not recall that, and I saw that, because we've been talking about, Sam, we talked about this 20 years ago. And that time we were putting 20% of capital, we put 50, I think when we got here, we were putting 50% of capital, and we broke it out, so, I don't think it's a bad idea to have reserves. And I wasn't sure that we had already set that up, because I couldn't remember what that account was.
And that is an account that I would like to clean up. It would take some extensive work with the building official, because I'm sure that there are bonds that have not been refunded, or whoever they're supposed to be refunded to are no longer in business, so they could be transferred to unclaimed funds. But it's probably years and years of cleanup work that just kind of fell by the wayside.
I think I would advocate for setting up a new fund then. Again, I don't know what steps we need to go through as a council to do that, if any. But that's what I would suggest.
Is the correct way to pursue it, like you said, to contact the auditor first, Christina, on your behalf?
So what you do is you would pass legislation by council, you would forward that to the auditor of state they have a fund request form, and then they would either respond to you yes or no.
Should we have an expectation of what we plan on putting into it?
That was gonna be my question, like, what's the
So we're
plan?
talking about $500,000 a year, a $250,000 a year, $1 million a year? I don't know the answer.
I think we need to wait for the outcome of House Bill 335 before we make any decision.
Well, and I would imagine
Yeah.
that would probably be something, towards the latter part of the year when we have a better understanding of where our financial position
Absolutely.
will be for that year. We would probably pass a resolution or a piece of legislation that says in 2026, whatever it is, we're going to put X number of dollars in.
Yes, and it would have to be part of your budget document for the end of the year, and you appropriate it for the following year.
We can just keep it on the agenda to talk about in August and then see, hopefully by that point, we know what House Bill's doing.
Hopefully we know by
Actually,
this
you
week.
won't,
Yeah.
because they'll come back till September.
Well, at least we'll know if it's in or out, the information that you provided, right? So,
I mean, I think we should move forward with the establishment of the fund regardless, though. I mean, is there any?
I would recommend that simply because we're now going to, starting July, we're going to be rolling into the next budget season. And if we are going to have a new fund, it would be nice to include it with all of that information for the end of the year.
Okay. All right, so I guess I'd like to make a motion then out of finance that we send this to, I mean, what, we send it to council for discussion? Do we send it directly to Matt? What's the appropriate?
I think if you want to establish a fund, make a motion that the finance committee recommends that city
Okay.
council set up a fund to have reserves set aside for building
Building
maintenance.
maintenance. Okay. All right, so I'll make a motion coming out of finance that council make a recommendation to set up a fund for the express purpose of maintenance and facilities for.
Is it the committee gonna create this fund, or the committee's recommending it to council?
Committee would
Committee's
recommend.
recommending the
That's what
council
he
makes
said,
the fund.
Yeah. I will second that.
Bill?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Karen?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
that's 3 yeses in favor of that. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Christina? Any other questions in general regarding finance? Okay, we will adjourn with the next meeting being August 27th. We're going to say 6:30, Christina, until we know further. Okay. All righty, thank you.